Good morning, I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Right now on Morning News Now, the search continues. More than 150 people are still unaccounted for this morning, following last week's tragic collapse of a South Florida high-rise condo building. The death toll now stands at 9. We'll bring you the latest from Surfside as concerns mount over the safety of surrounding and similar buildings in the region. Use of force. The U.S. launches a series of what the Pentagon is calling, quote, defensive airstrikes in Iraq and Syria, authorized by President Biden. Up ahead, we'll tell you what's behind this latest operation. Reversing course across the U.S. this weekend, signs of a country making a comeback. Packed, maskless theaters, parades, and full-capacity sporting events. But the troubling rise of the Delta variant has the World Health Organization on alert. Why it's now urging even the fully vaccinated to mask up once again. Tour de regret. Police in France have launched an investigation into an unidentified spectator who caused this massive crash in the first stage of the Tour de France Saturday. The latest on the search for her and how race officials are now responding. And glory days. After 15 months, empty theaters and dark marquees, Broadway roared back to life over the weekend, led by none other than Bruce Springsteen, inside the return of a New York institution, no longer dancing in the dark. And it is so good to be back with you this morning.
So Broadway's back and you're back.
I'm back, yay.
And tan.
I know, with a little color. Thanks for noticing.
You're welcome.
I'm so happy to be here. So good to see you and all of you. And we're going to begin with that desperate search for any possible survivors in the Surfside condo collapse.
County officials say 152 people are still unaccounted for. And as rescue workers enter their 5th day of searching through the mountain of rubble, a makeshift memorial is growing near the site. Police have identified 8 of the 9 confirmed victims so far. Their ages range from 26 to 83 years old. Dozens of families visited the site on Sunday to see the search firsthand, waiting for any news about their loved ones. NBC News correspondent Jay Gray joins us now from the scene in Surfside, Florida. So first of all, Jay, what more can you tell us about those victims who've been identified?
Yeah, it's just so tragic, Joe. Savannah, good to talk to you. And those victims, their families obviously grieving at this point, but wanting to share a bit more about them. And we know that one of the first victims identified, Stacy Feng, was actually pulled from the wreckage early and alive with her son. They were taken to the hospital. She unfortunately passed away there. Her son still recovering, a 15-year-old junior high student, a baseball player in the area, and a lot of people surrounding him and trying to take care of him as he continues to recover. Then you've got the Lozano couple, and they'd been married for more than 50 years. One of the most tragic things about their passing is that their son lives in a tower just directly across from where they were when they perished. He went out that morning, looked out, and screamed to his wife, "My parents' apartment is gone. The building is gone," and rushed down to the scene. We're beginning to learn a little bit more as this process continues about those who have been identified. Of course, there are so many who haven't been found, haven't been identified, and there are families struggling with that unknown as well, Joe and Savannah.
So, Jay, what is the feeling in that community right now, especially for people who live in the area and near those towers?
Joe, it's still shock, to be real frank, heartache and horror over what's happened here. And like many of us, they just can't get their heads around exactly what's happened. That's going to take some time as this process continues. We're able to talk to a few, and they share those emotions.
You knew someone who lived in the building?
Yeah, she's still missing. We don't know what happened. And at this point, I don't think that they're going to find her alive. What you see on the news.
Will you take your time?
What you see on the news, it won't like really show what is happening and what we're living here. You see the families of the victims like crying in front of your building.
Yeah, and look, you can hear it in the voices here. The investigation continuing and really focused on the bottom of this building, Joe and Savannah, a possible structural failure in or below the underground parking garage. That's where the engineers, the experts are looking right now.
It's tough to watch, Jay. We know those families are just holding on to hope as much as humanly possible. We know that officials have issued a voluntary evacuation for the other buildings in the complex. Are people choosing to heed that warning and leave, or are they staying?
Joe, a mixed bag. There are people who have decided to move out at least for a few weeks and really assess what's going on here. But we've talked to others who say they feel safe. There haven't been any problems. Of course, engineers are looking at all of the towers in this area right now.
All right. Jay Gray reporting in Surfside. Jay, thanks so much for your reporting this morning. Appreciate it.
Miami-Dade Commissioner Sally Heyman joins us now. Commissioner, good morning. Thank you for being here. So talk to us about some of the ongoing challenges workers are facing. I mean, we can see what that site looks like in that video we were just playing there in our last segment. We've heard about these fires. Tell us about what's going on there on the ground.
Well, unfortunately, they're now this morning facing a thunderstorm once again. The elements out there have been incredible, but so too have been the men and women of just about every emergency rescue group available, and from local to state to international, the work effort has been exceptional. We have seen a continuance of move forward, stay focused on research efforts to go to certain areas, search it out, go and proceed where they could best have the chance of a successful recovery of live people. What is exceptional is the elements are working with, but they're being meticulous, respectful, and the area has been secured. The building, since yesterday, has been marked by floors and coded after, again, another additional search on what is an unstable building. I want to tell everybody that this is isolated. It is incredible to learn that there was knowledge of problems back in 2018. That has come to light. But this is isolated. These areas have professionals with a great building code. This area, like every other area in South Florida, is exposed every year for 6 months to hurricane season and saltwater proximity. And they are sound buildings that people should not be alarmed spreading out. We are taking proactive efforts to do inspections. And this is not a high rise. This was only 12 stories and 2 stories subterranean. We have some that are 30, 40, 50, 60 stories. And you know something? People need to just concentrate on what we have at hand. The best of the best in a search, rescue, and recovery effort. And I want to thank especially the community here and all across the country for stepping up with compassion and concern and prayers.
Absolutely. And Commissioner, I'll ask you a little bit more about that search in just a moment. But first, I want to follow up on something you just said, mentioning that we did learn that an engineer warned of what they called major structural damage in that building back in 2018. I think you've probably set some minds at ease there with what you just said about the area. But what would you say to Miami-Dade residents, now people in Surfside that are right near there, in high rises, like you mentioned, that are even taller than this 12-story building? I mean, what would you say to them, especially as surrounding buildings are being evacuated?
Well, that has not been a call by Miami-Dade County. That was one individual that made that suggestion. If I lived there and I had an understanding of the integrity of the building, but also its operation, and they usually have a board of condominiums or a management company, and people are comfortable with the engagement and the professionalism of it, there's no reason to leave. I live in South Florida. I go through hurricane season. Every once in a while, you may see, a settlement crack. My building is from 1955. And the reality is, I'm safe. I don't think we need to add that into a mix because someone had a suggestion of it. There's no indication that there's another issue, including from the same developers and stuff a block away that people have subsequently come in to inspect. That is going to be done. There's been a request, or actually a mandate by the county mayor to say, get out with inspectors and take a look. Let people feel good again. I honestly believe, from everything I have heard factually by forensic people that are on site, by people who do inspections, by building people, that this is isolated.
Now, Commissioner, today marks day 5 of the search and rescue operation. Do you still have hope of finding survivors?
Yes, I think the pictures that you are showing mark the spots of engagement, but most especially, it doesn't show the whole picture. There are approximately 300 people with skills of search and rescue that are on scene. You're not seeing 2 layers of subterranean crews in the building site. And yes, there are actual pockets where cars have fit and large boulders are there. You have to remain hopeful. These men and women that are going 24/7, they're out there, they're hopeful. I'm hopeful, and I hope everybody else will be too.
And I know literally many of them are working longer than 24 hours in a stretch. Miami-Dade County Commissioner Sally Heyman, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
From coast to coast this weekend, we saw images of the country returning to normal. Parades filled streets, moviegoers packed theaters, and Broadway started to reopen.
But the pandemic is still not over. Concern is growing over the dangerous Delta variant. It's already causing some countries to bring back restrictions. Let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar. So, Dr. Azar, first of all, the World Health Organization is so concerned about the Delta variant. It's encouraging fully vaccinated people to wear masks. What do you make of that? Is that something that we should be doing here?
Good morning, Joe. You know, I read that over the weekend, and I've been sort of trying to, make sense of it and explain to my family what that means. And we're fully vaccinated in this household, and we just went to a Mets game on Saturday. How is this changing our behavior? What are we going to do? What I'm really looking forward to is hearing what, if any, response we're going to get from, number one, from the coronavirus task force press conference, hopefully later today, as well as from CDC to see if they have any response. You know, the language was interesting, Joe and Savannah. It was, you can't assume that you're safe if you're fully vaccinated. You should play it safe. Essentially, what I think they're saying is this. We know from the studies and some real world evidence that if you've had 2 doses of the Pfizer vaccine and with extrapolation, the mRNA vaccines to Moderna, you are reasonably well protected, close to 90% against symptomatic disease, and certainly protection from severe disease and hospitalization. But the analogy that I'm using these days is, let's say you have a water balloon that has holes in it. Where is the water going to go? It's going to go to the holes. And the variant and the virus is going to go to the folks who are unvaccinated. And as long as you have pockets of unvaccinated people, as we do here in the US and as there are many worldwide, the Delta variant is going to continue to spread. And I just think that all of us need to keep that in mind, that our protection is not 100%. So if I go into a grocery store, if I go into a crowded indoor space, I am still vulnerable. I'm not 100% protected. And I think that that's really kind of the messaging that they were trying to get across, which I think we kind of lost a little bit in our exuberance over our reopening, and guidance from CDC that basically said if you're vaccinated, you can go ahead and live your life as you did pre-pandemic. Right. But you can't forget about that lurking virus is still out there, you guys, and we're all still technically a little bit vulnerable, just to different degrees.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much so, in fact, that in Australia, Sydney is going back into a 2-week lockdown to control the Delta variant. Do you think the U.S. could be on a similar path, Dr. Natalie? Could we see restrictions in some places again?
So I think that that's always on the table, Savannah. But, it is a little bit like apples and oranges comparing the U.S. to Australia. Australia's vaccination rates are very, very low, number one. And number two, they have a very different approach and culture when it comes to compliance and lockdown, meaning that, their residents are much more likely to comply with, these more severe restrictions and lockdowns. They're just not that popular here in the US, as we all know. And really the main reason to enforce something as severe as a lockdown is to prevent that surge that could really crumble a health system. It's a 2-week lockdown. That's the incubation period. That's the rationale for it. Do I think that that could still happen in certain areas in the country? Sure. Look at Missouri, for example. If your hospital systems are at risk of being, overrun by COVID-19, we will absolutely see, I think, short-term lockdowns re-implemented here. But again, it's not popular, and I don't think it's going to be something that is necessary at a more widespread level here in the U.S., given our vaccination rates.
Dr. Azar, while we have you, a recent study found COVID survivors who lost their sense of taste and smell may not get it back for up to a year. What does that tell you about the lingering side effects of the virus?
Well, what I actually appreciated about this information, Joe, is that we actually have something a little bit more conclusive rather than so elusive. We don't know what's going to happen to these patients long term because we're literally studying it real time. So this was very encouraging. Close to 100% of folks did regain their sense of smell, and by association, you will regain your sense of taste. Usually that goes in concert. What I think is rather interesting, and I've been following this story for a little while now, is that you can actually do what's called olfactory training. It's literally physical therapy for your sense of smell, and ENTs are doing that for COVID-19 patients, and it can be quite helpful. So folks should know that if they're still, suffering from that loss of sense of smell, they can do something about it.
Oh, that's cool to hear.
Yeah, definitely, especially for one of those people. Dr. Azar, thank you so much.
The U.S. military carried out airstrikes against Iran-backed militia groups along the Iraq-Syria border on Sunday. The Pentagon says U.S. fighter jets targeted operational and weapons storage facilities at 2 locations in Syria and 1 in Iraq on the orders of President Biden. Military officials say the strikes were in response to a series of drone attacks on U.S. military personnel in Iraq. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel joins us now from London with more on this. Richard, good morning.
Good morning. So this is all about the drones. For the last several months, Shia militias, which are based in Iraq, operate in Syria, backed by Iran, have been using drones with increasing sophistication. They've been dive bombing drones with small explosives attached to them. They've been attacking Iraqi bases that house American personnel. Because these drones are quite maneuverable, because they're quite small, they've been able to evade base defenses. Generally, base defenses are set up to stop rocket attacks. And for many years in Iraq, rockets were the primary threat. Now, it is evolving, and these militia groups are using drones. And just a few weeks ago, the Shia militias were parading their drones. Apparently, they got a new arrival from Iran through the streets of Iraq. So we saw this airstrikes overnight. They have been condemned by the militia groups themselves. The militias say that at least 4 of their fighters were killed. They're promising revenge. Iran also condemned the attacks, and the Iraqi government said it does not want its territory to be used to carry out proxy attacks or to settle scores. But it shows that this is still very much an active campaign, and the U.S. is trying to send a message that it will not accept these drone attacks.
So let's take a look at the story that you put together, Richard.
The U.S. military says the building on the right was being used to transfer Iranian weapons to militias in Syria and Iraq, until it was reduced to rubble by an American airstrike overnight. Another alleged logistics base, this one crowded with trucks, was also targeted. The Pentagon said 3 locations were struck in Syria and Iraq that were funneling weapons to Shiite militias, including drones. President Biden didn't answer questions about the airstrikes, which the Pentagon said were carried out on his order to protect American forces in the region. Earlier Earlier this month, Shiite militias in Iraq paraded what appeared to be their new drones, likely from Iran. The militias have been getting more sophisticated, dive-bombing drones with small explosives into Iraqi bases that house American personnel, evading defenses. The top American general in the Middle East called the drones a significant threat. The militia attacks are part of a long pressure campaign by Iran to get American troops to leave Iraq. The timing of the American airstrikes is also significant and sends a message to Iran's incoming hardline president and potential future supreme leader, Ibrahim Raisi, elected just this month. A message that the U.S. can negotiate with Iran and fight its militias at the same time.
This is the second time that President Biden has ordered attacks, airstrikes against these same Shia militias in Iraq and Syria.
All right, Richard Engel. Richard, thanks so much.
A record heat wave is hitting 25 million people in the Northwest with little relief in sight, and thousands lost power last night. Those high temperatures are forcing many to head to cooling centers, but will today offer any relief?
And with that, let's check on the Morning News Now weather with Bill Karen. Bill, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. And, what happened this weekend in the Northwest, would have been unimaginable before this summer or at any time for anyone that grew up in that region of the country. I mean, what we're experiencing in the Northeast is typical. What's happening in the Northwest is like nothing else that we've seen. It's not even a wow. It's more than a wow. So Seattle today is going to hit 110 degrees. Just to kind of give you some perspective, the hottest it had ever been before this was 103 degrees. So we're breaking an all-time record by 7 degrees. And their period of record goes back to the late 1800s, so about 120 years. So it's not like it just started. So this is crazy. So give you another perspective, Washington, D.C. and New York City all-time record high is 106. This would be like if New York City and D.C. hit 113. It hits 113 degrees in New York City and D.C. People are running around in the streets, and it's one of the biggest news stories you've ever seen. So what's happening in the Northwest is, really just eye-opening. So here's how the numbers are going to play out today. We talked about Seattle, but Seattle's not alone. Portland will break and shatter their all-time record high today, being 114 degrees. That's after 112 yesterday. And those little yellow arrows next to the cities, that tells you how much warmer than normal it is. So it's going to be almost 40 degrees warmer than normal today. Thankfully, it cools off a little bit in the Northwest tomorrow, but we're still very hot from Boise to Lewiston. And then in the Northeast, this is a different type of heat. This is hot, hazy, it's humid. The heat index will feel like about 100 to about 105. The actual temperatures will be in the mid-90s, but it's a very uncomfortable temperatures. And these are heat advisories. This is kind of what you expect a couple times every summer, where guys in the Northwest, this is what we never expect. And, with the mega drought and with climate change, let's just hope this isn't, becoming a new normal for summertime activities in the Northwest. I mean, 110 in Seattle, I never thought I'd say those words.
I mean, Bill, I lived in Seattle for a few years. It was in the upper 80s. People were complaining about the heat there. It was just so unusual to get anything really above that. And again, as you mentioned, no one there has air conditioning. The vast majority of people don't have AC there. So, all right, we'll be keeping an eye on that. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, coming up, damage control from the White House over the weekend, all over infrastructure legislation.
We'll bring you everything you need to know from inside the Beltway next.
The White House was doing damage control over the weekend to get the president's bipartisan infrastructure deal back on track. President Biden said Thursday that he would only sign the deal if it arrived on his desk alongside a second, broader infrastructure bill passed by Democrats through reconciliation. The president put out a lengthy statement on Saturday walking back his comments, saying, "The bottom line is this. I gave my word to support the infrastructure plan, and that's what I intend to do." NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli joins us now from outside the White House, and NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Hake is in Washington ahead of what looks like a busy summer for lawmakers. So, Mike, let's start with what happened over the weekend. This thing is fragile to begin with, and the White House basically had to backtrack, saying President Biden was not issuing a veto threat after he said he wouldn't sign one infrastructure deal without the other. What happened here?
Well, what happened, Joe, is you're getting a small glimpse of what's going to be taking place over the next 3 months, really, as this process unfolds, where everything that the president, the White House does to reassure Republicans and moderates will put some anxiety in the pocket of the progressives, and vice versa, really. What happened on Thursday was the president was trying to reassure progressive Democrats who want to see a much bigger human infrastructure package that the deal he cut with Republicans was not going to be the end of this, that there was still going to be more to come. Well, that understandably concerned the Republicans and moderates who feel like they put themselves on the line here. And so the White House top advisors, the president himself, spent the weekend calling those Republicans and moderates to reassure them that he would ultimately support this bipartisan deal. But this is going to be going on for months, and there's more to come.
Yeah, no kidding, Garrett. So how are Republicans, especially those who did work on this deal, reacting to this walk back? Does it look like they're still on board?
Yeah, as Mike indicated, there wasn't just a public reassurance from the White House, but also significant private back channel conversations between the president and his top aides and those 5 Republicans who were critical in putting this bill together. 3 of them were out on the Sunday shows over the weekend, reiterating their support for it. So at least among the original authors, support is back on the Republican side. But it's going to take more than just those 5 to get this across the finish line. And the key player in how we move ahead now is going to be what Minority Leader Mitch McConnell decides to do. If he comes out and pans this deal, it'll be a lot more difficult to get the necessary 10+ Republicans on board to support it. And at least some of those key negotiators think McConnell's vote is still in play. Here's what Bill Cassidy said on Meet the Press this weekend that's worth paying attention to.
If we can pull this off, I think Mitch will favor it. Now, he didn't like the president throwing the wrench in there, saying, listen, the two are tied together. That's not what we were told. And so, of course, that caused a little bit of a, let's think about this. But I think Mitch McConnell wants infrastructure as much as anyone else.
And McConnell has said as much publicly that he would like to see a bipartisan infrastructure bill pass. Whether this bill meets his internal tests remains to be seen.
So, Garrett, the House is in session this week. The Senate is not. So where do these bills go from here?
The infrastructure metaphors are great for this, Joe, because we're about to see a pretty significant summer traffic jam here on Capitol Hill. If you want to try to pass this bipartisan bill and a reconciliation bill, both through the Senate before the House will act, and that seems to be the plan here, you're looking at really a 3-week or so window later in July to try to get probably first the bipartisan deal, then the budget reconciliation deal through the Senate. Everybody goes home in August, and then you're looking at a busy back-to-school September season to try to get all these things to the president's desk as soon as possible.
All right. See if there can be a bridge between the two sides. All right, Mike, let's bring it back to the White House. President Biden is welcoming the Israeli president today. What can we expect from that meeting today?
Well, Joe, obviously Israel, our closest ally in the region, but one we've had some serious issues over the past few months with the president, obviously recently having to navigate the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Now, the Israeli president in their parliamentary system, he's the head of state, not the head of government. So this is much more of a diplomatic meeting where the president can express our continued support for Israel and not necessarily dive into the very difficult issues that the new prime minister is going to have to tackle with the White House.
All right. Mike Memoli, Garrett Haake, thank you both so very much this morning. Appreciate it.
On Meet the Press yesterday, guests talked about the ongoing search and rescue operation in Miami and the infrastructure debate in Washington. Here's NBC's Chuck Todd with Meet the Press Compressed.
This building was built in 1981. Do you think you should order a review of any building basically that was built essentially in the 70s and 80s, pre-Hurricane Andrew, and have them all re-inspected with a fine-tooth comb?
We have a very strong building code, as you know, and based on Hurricane Andrew, as you say, we learned so much from that, and buildings subsequent have been built to a very high standard. For sure, when we get this information, we may look at what else we might do. At this point, we're starting with the review of those 40 plus. And, this, as far as we know and hope, is an anomaly, but the investigation is going to be ongoing. Right now, we're still very focused on search and rescue.
What makes tying them together somehow more fraught for some than if it's, back to back the way it's likely to be?
We were assured that the two would not be linked. Yes, the human infrastructure, if you will, as they call it, would be pursued, but the two would not be linked. Why is that important? First, there's bipartisan opposition to the non-hard infrastructure portion of their bill, bipartisan in both chambers. That's number one. Number two, Republicans think that portion is bad for our country. We have an inflation rate that is higher than it's been in quite some time, and that bill would make it higher. So we don't want to be party of something that might coerce the passage. And lastly, it'll probably sink both.
We're here to make sure that he is successful in making sure that we do have a larger infrastructure plan. And the fact of the matter is that while we can welcome this work and welcome collaboration with Republicans and in those areas where there is agreement, but that doesn't mean that the president should be limited by Republicans, particularly when we have a House majority, we have 50 Democratic senators, and we have the White House.
Let's say you get rid of the filibuster, you get all of this progressive change that you would like to see, and then all of a sudden the roles are reversed and everything gets rolled back. Is that a good enough defense to you for the filibuster?
No. Political systems all across the country, all across the world, pass legislation with majorities, and they're fine. Democratic policies are popular. And once they are enacted, they are very politically difficult to undo. And so, I do not believe in the defeatism of saying we will lose in the future and this will automatically mean that anything we do now is going to be reversed, so we might as well not do anything now. Our job is to legislate.
That was NBC's Todd, and you can watch Meet the Press every Sunday on NBC. Coming up, the high-stakes Tour de France blunder seen around the world.
The investigation now underway into the still unidentified spectator at the center of it all. Next. We have a follow-up on a story we told you about last week. James Corden went on the Howard Stern show and said he will revise the segment Spill Your Guts or Fill Your Guts on his show after a petition called out the insensitive portrayal of Asian foods. The segment gives guests the option to either answer a revealing question or eat, quote, gross food. The author of the Change.org petition, which has been signed by more than 45,000 people, pointed out that many of the foods featured are from Asian cultures. Corden told Stern the segment would now feature unhealthy food like pizzas topped with cheeseburgers. So there you go.
Yeah,
I'm sure they can come up with all sorts of interesting combinations of unhealthy foods combined together.
I just don't even know how you take a bite of that. But.
I don't. That's alone right there.
Yeah,
is part of the intrigue. So you better reveal whatever you're going to reveal.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah. Now, concerns are growing in Israel after some fully vaccinated adults got infected with the coronavirus. The country had one of the fastest vaccination programs in the world, but now cases there are rising again, fueled by the Delta variant, and officials are reimposing some restrictions. NBC News global correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Tel Aviv. Raf, good morning. So how significant are these numbers that we're seeing of these breakthrough cases, these fully vaccinated people contracting COVID-19?
Savannah, good morning. So Israel is seeing about 200 total COVID cases every day. And of those, a few dozen are these so-called breakthrough cases, someone who is fully vaccinated and then tests positive for the virus. Now, that sounds really scary, right? Somebody who has 2 doses of Pfizer, which is what they used in their world-beating vaccine rollout here in Israel, and still tests positive. But the thing experts in Israel are saying to remember is the Pfizer vaccine is 90% effective at stopping infection. And 90% is a great number, but it's not 100%. And so we have known the whole time that about 10% of the time, someone who is fully vaccinated, who comes into contact with an infected person, will get infected themselves. And these numbers are in line with those expectations. Savannah.
And so are experts in Israel worried about how effective vaccines are specifically against the Delta variant? I mean, you bring up the very good point about what we know about the efficacy of the Pfizer vaccine, but what about in terms of matching it up against this variant?
So right now, the answer to that question is no. The vaccines appear to be holding up against the Delta variant. As we just said, it's not surprising that some people are getting infected. But the thing doctors here are really focused on is people who are vaccinated are not getting seriously ill. Across all of Israel, there are only 23 people in hospital with serious COVID. And at the end of the day, that is what really matters. We're at a testing center here just outside Tel Aviv. I spoke to Dr. Yael Reichenberg earlier. Take a listen to what she had to say about this.
I have to mention that the patients who are vaccinated and get ill again, the illness is either asymptomatic or very, very, very mild. So that is very optimistic for us. So we see that the Delta variant is covered from the immunization. About 80-85% are covered. And we're monitoring the situation on a daily basis.
So, Savannah, as you heard from the doctor, here in Israel, they are calm, but they're not complacent. They are watching these numbers. They are keeping an eye on things as they develop, and they will change course if things get out of hand. Savannah?
Absolutely, Raf. Some really good context there, especially as we hear headlines that some restrictions are coming back, though, that some of those numbers are still quite low. Thank you so much.
Time to take a look at what else is making news around the world this morning.
NBC News reporter Matt Bodner joins us now from Moscow. Good morning, Matt.
Savannah, Joe, good morning. Well, let's start things off in the Vatican, where United States Secretary of State Tony Blinken met with Pope Francis today, actually the first meeting between a Biden administration official and the head of the Vatican. And they discussed a number of things ranging from climate change to human trafficking. Now, this meeting actually is a bit of a setup for a visit later in October when Joe Biden is set to go meet with Pope Francis. And that'll be one to watch because Joe Biden is the second ever U.S. president who is also a Catholic. So we'll keep an eye on that one. And moving on over here to Moscow now, authorities today have actually put out or implemented a very controversial, essentially a vaccine passport. These are QR codes that link up to your vaccine information in a database, and you're going to need them starting today, actually already right now, to go into cafes, restaurants, and bars. And this is all coming as here too is experiencing outbreaks of the Delta variant, but also this is really kind of seen as a means to push people, a very vaccine skeptic population, into getting their jabs. And then ending on a slightly lighter COVID note, today the Wimbledon tennis tournament, that very famous tournament, kicks off, and it actually, was canceled. It's the first time in 2 years. It was canceled last year, obviously because of the pandemic. That's actually the first time since World War II that it was canceled. So step towards normal.
The beginning of the fortnight. Good to have that up and running. All right, Matt, thanks so much.
Thanks, Matt.
Police are searching for a spectator thought to have caused a big crash at the Tour de France over the weekend. A cyclist hit a cardboard sign that was being held up by a woman on the roadside, resulting in a massive collision. NBC News foreign correspondent Molly Hunter has the story.
As cyclists took off again in pursuit of the yellow jersey, police are in pursuit of the woman in the yellow jacket. There she is Saturday at the Tour de France, holding up a sign for her grandparents for the cameras.
Oh my goodness.
She's leaning into the road, looking the wrong way, and doesn't see the leaders approaching.
It was the sign that the rider in front hit.
Then German cyclist Tony Martin clips her cardboard sign. And from there, it's one after another. Total chaos, all caused by one woman.
I don't know what happened there. Maybe they clipped the crowd. But
from up above, you see her on the side of the road. A few minutes later, she appears to have folded her sign, watching the aftermath. Police say she then fled the scene. Authorities are now asking witnesses for help finding her. They plan to charge her with deliberately violating safety regulations and causing injuries. And one tour official said they plan to sue her. At least one rider involved in this crash has ended his tour completely, and reports several others were injured. Molly Hunter, NBC News, London.
That is quite a picture.
Yeah.
See if they find that spectator.
Yeah.
All right, coming up, the pandemic as we know it may be on its way out, but the mental toll it has taken on some still lingers.
We've got some insight into America's growing COVID stress problem up next.
It's time for our CNBC Money Minute, the biggest financial headlines of the day and why they matter to you.
Today, CNBC's Seema Modi is with us. Hi, Seema. Good morning.
Savannah and Joe, good morning. The FAA has reportedly told Boeing the updated version of its 777 jet likely won't be ready for approval until 2023. The agency sent Boeing a letter in May warning it may require more test flights. It noted a number of concerns, including problems with the flight control software, which abruptly pitched the plane without the pilot's input during a test flight in December. The 777X has faced major delays due to the pandemic and could end up being about 4 years behind schedule. UBS plans to let up to 2/3 of its staff work a hybrid schedule on a permanent basis. The Financial Times reports the Swiss lender is betting the approach will give it an edge over Wall Street banks in recruiting. UBS has about 72,000 employees worldwide. The company's stance echoes that of its European rivals. However, several U.S. banks, including JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and Morgan Stanley, have ordered staff in New York City back to the office. Universal's F9 speeds to the top of the box office, bringing in an estimated $70 million this weekend, according to ComScore. It's the biggest opening of any film since the pandemic began. The latest installment in the Fast and Furious franchise opened only in theaters and had the widest release of any movie yet. The strong showing suggests Hollywood may have something resembling a regular summer movie season, even if it's starting later than usual, and probably won't set any industry records, but definitely encouraging for that industry. Savannah and Joe.
Yeah, no records, but we're getting there slowly but surely.
Yeah.
So
Also, I don't know, people just really love those movies.
They do.
We'll
They're
see how
very
that translates to
passionate.
others, but they've got a big fan base.
Steve, thanks so much.
Despite the pandemic and restrictions easing, there's still a lot of uncertainty about life in a post-COVID world.
In late January, early in the vaccine rollout, 80% of Americans said the pandemic caused them a significant amount of stress. Experts are warning that number isn't going down right away. The mental weight of the pandemic is still here despite life returning to some kind of normalcy. Dr. Marie-Christine Nietzsche joins us now. She's a research associate at Dartmouth College and Chapman University. Doctor, great to have you with us. So I know you've been working on a survey of Americans' mental health since April of last year, shortly after the pandemic began. What have you learned so far?
Good morning, Joe and Savannah. Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm part of a team of researchers, the COVID dynamic team that spans a number of research institutions like Caltech, Chapman University, Dartmouth College, Rutgers, and others. And together, we've been surveying all 50 states since April of last year through all of the ups and downs of the pandemic, but also the killing of George Floyd and all of the highly polarized election that we had last year. That allowed us to really keep a hand on the pulse of America and check the temperature as these stresses went. What we saw is an evolution of stress, where at the beginning, you may remember, we all got stuck to the news and had those impulse buys of acute, rapid increase in anxiety and stress. And over time, as the months have passed, people have switched to what we call more of a chronic stress. And you see increase in nightmares, difficulty sleeping, anxiety and depression. Now, we're in a specific moment right now because with the vaccine in the summer, we have a little bit of hope coming back. The numbers of casualty has gone down, and we see a little bit of relief there. But specialists worry that as the seasonality of the vaccine and the grief that has been put on hold for the past few months returns, anxiety and grief might catch up to us in the fall.
And Doctor, you mentioned that term chronic stress, and I know that one of the things that comes along with that is that it could lead to people behaving more aggressively just in their daily lives. I mean, we've seen some of that playing out in these fights we see breaking out in stores or this behavior on airplanes. Tell us more about what you're seeing and what people can do to cope with that level of stress.
Thank you. Yes, chronic stress is the natural response that we go into when a stressor takes longer to be resolved than what our natural response of fight or flight response can handle. And this pandemic has definitely put us under increased stress for a very long time, the order of months, and now going on to over a year. So that's what we can see is people are now trying to manage increased anxiety and uncertainty for a much longer period. And our initial ability to deal with acute stress gets overwhelmed. And so now we need to mobilize different forms of coping to deal with those longer stressors. The particularity of 2020 is that this stress hit us collectively. So while some of us might have been hit and reach out to support sources otherwise, those support sources might also have been hit with stress and grief and loss at the same time, thus reducing our collective ability to support each other and to weather chronic stress. And it is still not over. So we're seeing people struggle to cope as the duration is expanding.
Doctor, let's take a look at some more numbers. A CDC survey found from December, 42% of Americans reported feelings of anxiety or depression. That is a huge increase from 11% who reported those symptoms before the pandemic. So what's your advice to people dealing with these symptoms as the pandemic starts to ease?
I would say it's important to have realistic expectations. You can reopen businesses that are still standing by signing an order. You can't get people over their grief by signing an order. So my advice to people would be to recognize when you need more help, to heal from the losses and trauma of 2020, and to reach out to get this help.
Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. What a perfect place to end there, to talk about the help that people can seek. Thank you for joining us. I know how important the research that you're doing is. And now, if you or someone you know needs help or someone to talk to, you can reach the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or the Disaster Distress Helpline at 1-800-985-5990. Coming up, ladies and gentlemen, Broadway is finally back, and you can thank the boss for a righteous kickstart.
Yeah, inside Bruce Springsteen's return, ushering in a new era of Broadway history. That's next. The bright lights of Broadway were turned on for the first time on Saturday in quite some time. Springsteen on Broadway reopened at the St. James Theater to a fully vaccinated audience. And I got a behind-the-scenes look at this long-awaited comeback for Broadway and for the boss.
On most nights, New York's pulse pounds to the beat of Broadway, a long-lost sound that returned to the St. James Theater, where an icon captivated the crowd before a single note was played.
If you want to be a big rock star, the first thing you got to do is you've got to have an image. It doesn't have to be fancy, you know. Oh, one thing, yeah.
The boss took to the stage for his intimate autobiographical show, Springsteen on Broadway. Performances like the overture for Broadway's reopening, coming 15 months after everything shut down.
Breath of the crowd when they said, "Sit down," I stood up.
Many more flashing marquee lights will be illuminated after Labor Day.
We would go to shows all week if we could. Huge weight, lift it off.
For fans, it has been a long wait, one now rewarded.
Check it right here.
Long wait for ushers, too, like Ashanti Acosta, now ushering in Broadway's new beginning.
You just get to meet so many different people working on Broadway. People come from all over to see a show and share in that moment together, and it's a one-in-a-lifetime performance. You'll never see it again.
Fans in the audience all got a playbill. What they didn't need to have is a mask. That's because everyone in here is vaccinated.
And the house was full, with the audience required to show proof of vaccination, along with that pricey ticket.
A little weird. We're probably going to put these on just for a little bit. We're vaccinated, but just to go in, a little strange. Haven't been around this many people in a while.
Vaccines were also required last Sunday when the Foo Fighters packed Madison Square Garden. First concert at MSG in more than 460 days. A raucous rock fest ahead of Springsteen's quieter acoustic serenade. Even though the boss's show hadn't been on Broadway in 2.5 years, Springsteen recently told today's Hoda Kotb he was ready for this run. You could say, born to run.
I know it's your life, but there's a lot of ground to cover there. Do you have to kind of remember and relearn the rhythm of that show?
The rhythm is in me, so I did it 236 times, so it's like riding a bike. It's not going to go away. With a flag of piracy flew from my mast. My sails were set wing to wing.
Now, with one show under his belt, Springsteen is taking the first steps for an entire industry that's ready to run too.
Super cool. Those who got to go loved it. It was an interesting mix of Broadway fans and Springsteen fans, so kind of different crowds.
Yeah, but they all had a great time. So excited.
Absolutely.
Oh,
they were
gosh.
Thrilled.
Oh,
and that one will be going up through Labor Day, and then starting in September, we're going to see more Broadway shows throughout New York.
I know you're such a big fan, and now you live here.
I'm excited.
Get to take them in more.
Exactly.
All right.
That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
But the news, of course, continues right now.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.